Bad Movie Mark Movie Review. Thank you for joining me as I review the 1946 John Ford Western, My Darling Clementine. Whoa, guys, there's no need to get violent here. I'm just reviewing every movie that has 100% fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes. I'll give them all a score of 1 to 10. After I review them all, I will rank them from worst to best. I started in the 1920s silent movie era, and now I'm at 1946 with My Darling Clementine. This movie has 100% fresh rating from the critics and an 86% fresh rating from the audience. It stars Henry Fonda, who has been a staple of all the movies that have 100% fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes. This is like his 5th or 6th. I think he has the most out of every actor so far. It also stars Victor Mature as Doc Holliday and Kathy Downs as Clementine. So like I said, this movie was directed by John Ford. This was the first, I believe the first Western or big Western that he did after Stagecoach, which we also reviewed because it also has 100% fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes. When this movie starts out, we are introduced to Henry Fonda and his family. So Henry Fonda is Wyatt Earp, and he is leading a herd of cattle across the western prairie, and he runs into a family known as the Clantons, and they are headed by the father, the older Clanton. And he says, like, oh, you guys are herding some cattle? I'll tell you what, I'll give you like a bunch of money for your cattle, and then you can just go on your way. And of course, Wyatt Earp declines this amount of money because this is what he wants to do. He wants to be a rancher, and he wants to ensure that this herd of cattle make it to where they're supposed to go. So he decides that he is going to ride into Tombstone, and he is going to get a shave. He is in dire need of a shave. So him and 2 of his brothers go into Tombstone, and the other brother stays out in the prairie watching the cattle. So when he goes to get the shave, he is in the chair, and all of a sudden a bullet flies by into the barbershop. Apparently across the street there's a bar, and there's an angry Indian in the bar who is just getting drunk and causing a scene. Wyatt Earp is very annoyed by this because it is messing up his shave, which is all he is focused on right now, is getting the shave. So he goes out into the middle of the city, and he sees the sheriff. He says, "You're the sheriff, why don't you go in there and stop the Indian from drinking?" And who on earth would give an Indian alcohol anyway? The sheriff says, well, I don't get paid enough for this. That guy's crazy. So he turns in his sheriff's star. So Wyatt Earp, just because he is annoyed, he decides to go into the bar. He takes kind of a back way through a window, and he grabs the Indian, and he knocks him out, and then he is dragging the Indian into the town, and he says, "There, here's your Indian. Everything's fine now. Can I please get my shave?"
Indian, get out of town and stay out.
How'd you like to stay on here, as marshal, I mean?
Nope. Barber!
And the mayor says, "Hey, you did a pretty good job in there. What, do you want to be the new sheriff?" And he's like, "No, I don't want to be the sheriff. I just want to get my shave and leave." And the mayor's like, "I didn't catch your name." And he's like, "Wyatt Earp." The sheriff's like, "Wyatt Earp, you were the sheriff back in Dodge, weren't you?" And he's like, "Former sheriff, no longer sheriff. Just came to get my shave." So he ends up getting a shave, and he leaves. Him and his brothers go back to the other brother that is minding the cattle. But when they get there, the brother is dead and the cattle are gone.
The cattle's gone.
So, they have been hoodwinked. So Wyatt Earp decides that he's going to go back into town, and he's going to take the job of the sheriff because now he wants to be able to catch the men who killed his brother.
Got myself a job.
Cow punching?
Marshalling.
Marshalling? In Tombstone? Well, good luck to you, Mr.
Earp. Wyatt Earp.
So he goes into town, and he takes a job as a sheriff, and then we see a scene where he is playing cards, he's playing poker, and as he's playing poker, there's this girl behind him who is helping the other people cheat, and he gets upset, and he takes the girl and he takes her outside, and he says, "Look, I don't need no one cheating when I'm trying to play cards."
Listen, miss, I admire poker, but you're increasing the odds. I catch you doing that again, I'll run you back to the Apache reservation where you belong.
And then he like dunks the girl in the water, and apparently this is Doc Holliday's girlfriend. So she says, you're gonna be in serious trouble when Doc Holliday comes back to town. And then he ends up coming back to town, and he meets Wyatt Earp for the first time. They have kind of an exchange where Doc Holliday says he doesn't have too good of a track record with marshals, and as long as the marshal kind of knows this and keeps his distance and lets Doc Holliday do what he wants to do, there's going to be no trouble. And Wyatt Earp understands this, and they have some sort of agreement with each other that they will not, pursue each other in that way in any way.
In fact, a man could almost follow your trail going from graveyard to graveyard.
There's one here, too. The biggest graveyard west of the Rockies. Marshals and I usually get along much better when we understand that right away.
So then there is a scene where a gentleman, he's an actor, he has come and he's reciting Shakespeare. So he was supposed to give this big play to an audience, to everyone in Tombstone, but he got drunk and he ended up just doing it in the bar, and he gave this play in the bar. Wyatt Earp goes to the bar to drag him and get him back into the hall where the play is going on, but the Clantons try to stop him because the Clantons are like the bullies of the town, and they're like, this guy's going to stay here and he's going to keep doing this in the bar. And then Wyatt Earp ends up drawing on one of them and ends up beating him, so he ends up taking the Shakespearean guy back to the play area where they're having this play.
To be or not to be, that is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune.
And then after that, Wyatt Earp is just sitting in a chair, and this buggy comes in, and in walks probably the most beautiful girl he's ever seen in his life, because he's very stricken by this girl.
Is that your duffel up there?
Yes.
And her name is Clementine. So she walks in and she's looking for Doc Holliday. He kind of takes her bags in, and then she runs into Doc Holliday, and apparently her and Doc Holliday were once together. They were a couple.
It's wonderful to see you again, John. You are pleased that I came. My coming has made you unhappy.
But Doc Holliday has made it very clear that he no longer wants to be with her, that he is not the same man that he was when he was with her before, that a lot of things have changed, and that she just needs to go on her way and forget that she ever saw him again.
Then I'll give you the truth. The man you once knew is no more. There's not a vestige of him left, nothing. Come, I'll take you back to the hotel.
Now, she, of course, hates this idea because she wants to be with Doc Holliday. And she tries to talk to him, and she tries to say, we still have something, we should still be together. But he is steadfast on this not happening. Then Wyatt Earp kind of takes him aside, and Wyatt Earp says, this lady is beautiful, and you're basically drinking yourself to death. I can tell you're sick, and maybe you should slow down, and maybe you should settle down with this girl.
A man will have to go a long ways before he finds a finer girl than that Miss Carter. Or a prettier one, for that matter. Keep that up and you'll be out of business.
But I think that Doc Holliday is kind of enjoying his fast life. He knows he is very sick and he doesn't have that long to live, so he is just going to enjoy this speedy life with Chihuahua and the gunslinging, the bar toting. He's just gonna enjoy this life with her. So Doc Holliday ends up going upstairs, and Wyatt Earp and Clementine are hanging out, and then Wyatt Earp and Clementine start kind of seeing each other. Doc Holliday comes downstairs and he sees that Clementine's still there, and he's like, I thought I told you to leave. It was either going to be you leave or me leave. So then Doc Holliday decides to leave. When Doc Holliday leaves, Wyatt Earp goes and sees Chihuahua. Now, Chihuahua has this pendant on her that Wyatt Earp's brother had, the brother that was killed. And Wyatt Earp takes the pendant and he says, whoever gave you this pendant is the one who killed my brother. Who gave you the pendant? And, well, he doesn't say that to her, but he just asks, who gave you the pendant? And she says that it was Doc Holliday gave me the pendant. So Wyatt Earp goes after Doc Holliday, brings him back into town. Doc Holliday and Wyatt Earp go to Chihuahua. They knock on her door, and one of the Clantons is in her room. Apparently, she's kind of cheating on Doc Holliday with one of the Clantons. He goes out of the window. He escapes out the window. They go into her apartment and to her house, and they question her about the pendant. And Doc Holliday says, why did you tell Wyatt Earp that I gave you this pendant? And she says, because you did. And then Wyatt Earp says, well, in that case, I'm going to have to arrest Doc Holliday because this was my brother's pendant, and whoever took the pendant is the one who killed my brother. Chihuahua then retracts her statement and says it actually wasn't Doc Holliday that gave me the pendant. I was alone. I thought Doc Holliday was leaving. It was a moment of weakness. Someone knocked on my door. I thought it was Doc Holliday, but it was one of the Clantons. And then it's the same Clanton that's out the window, who just escaped out the window. So he ends up shooting into the apartment, and he ends up, or into the house, and he ends up hitting Chihuahua.
It was Billy Clanton.
And then he flees. So as he's fleeing, Wyatt Earp gets his brother Virgil, and he says, Virgil, go chase that Clanton. So Virgil gets on this horse. He chases the Clanton guy. This Clanton son, he ends up going to his house, and right before he gets to the house, Virgil kills him, shoots him and kills him. Virgil, the Clantons then bring him into the home. Virgil goes up to the house to kind of make sure that the Clanton is dead, and when he gets into the house, he says, look, I'm sorry I had to kill one of your own, but you know, he shot and tried to kill Chihuahua. They don't care. They shoot him and kill him anyway. We will discuss this later. Virgil is now dead. Back at the tombstone, Chihuahua is now in dire straits, and they decide that Doc Holliday should operate on her since he's a doctor. We'll also talk about this later. So Doc Holliday operates on her. Unfortunately, he is not successful, and Chihuahua ends up dying. The Clantons then bring Virgil's body to Doc Holliday, or sorry, not to Doc Holliday, to Wyatt Earp. They kind of leave him on the ground in front of Wyatt Earp's, where Wyatt Earp is staying. And then they say, we're going to be at the OK Corral later on. You should come down and we'll have a good shootout.
How's Chihuahua?
She's dead. Dr. John Holliday. When do we start?
So Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday and the two brothers, they end up going to the OK Corral. They have, I don't think it's actually at the OK Corral. It's at a different building. It's at a different place. But it's always called like the shootout at the OK Corral. So that's what I'm calling it. So they end up going there. They have their shootout. Every member of the Clanton family dies except the father, and then Doc Holliday ends up dying in the shootout. And after this is all done, Wyatt Earp tells the Clanton Sr. that he should just go ahead and go on home. And then him and Clementine and Wyatt Earp end up together. And that's the entire movie. That's probably the fastest wrap-up of a movie I've done so far. Okay, so what do I think about this movie? I will start off by saying that of all the movies that we've done with Henry Fonda, I honestly think that this is his least to best movie. There's a few issues I have with this movie, and I think people are going to say that I'm nitpicking a little bit, but there are issues that for me really ruin the movie. I will say the movie is good, but these issues really kind of tarnish this movie for me. Now, John Ford, believe it or not, he's old enough. He was born in a time when he was actually friends with Wyatt Earp. They knew each other in real life. I think Wyatt Earp died in like the late 1920s or early 1930s, and John Ford was, I think, born in the late 1800s. So they knew each other. And John Ford said that when he made this movie, especially the ending with the shootout at the OK Corral, that he was using Wyatt Earp's depiction of events that he gave him when they discussed this, and this leads me to believe that Wyatt Earp's memory at this time was either very bad or that John Ford took a lot of liberties with what was being said. So I'm going to go ahead and just jump to the OK Corral part, the last part of the movie, because I think when you watch a movie about Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday, this is the part of the movie that needs to sell it. Like, this is the big payoff. This is what everyone is looking for. This is what everyone wants, is a big shootout with Doc Holliday and, you know, the Wyatt Earp and them winning and all of that, and none of them dying. So at the end of the movie, the first problem is that when Virgil is Virgil is chasing this Clanton guy, and he kills Clanton, and then afterwards the Clantons kill Virgil. So Virgil didn't die here, and he actually fought at the OK Corral and didn't die there either. He lived until he was like in his 60s, and he was actually more of a senior member. In real life, he was like more of a senior member of the Marshals than Wyatt Earp. Wyatt Earp just gets all the fame and attention, but Virgil was like a huge part of this this shootout. He was a huge part of the Marshal system and a huge part of the story, and for John Ford to just kill him doesn't make any sense to me at all, because it's definitely not what happened, and he was supposedly told the story of what happened exactly by Wyatt Earp, so it absolutely makes no sense. So why would he kill him? Besides that point, the other issues that I take here, there's a couple. First of all, at the shootout at the OK Corral, it wasn't just a family of Clantons. There were other people there, and then the elder Clanton, the only one who survived in the movie, actually wasn't even there. So that's also another issue. And finally, probably the biggest issue that everyone will know, because it's so famous, is that Doc Holliday didn't die in the OK Corral shootout. He died of tuberculosis when he was 31. Like, how is this possible that they get this wrong? It's just so weird to me that John Ford is coming out and saying, oh, this is the depiction of events that I was given by Wyatt Earp, but there's no way that could be true unless Wyatt Earp just didn't, like, his memory was gone at that point. One other thing that I just have to mention that I thought was kind of ridiculous was when Doc Holliday is operating on Chihuahua. Now, yes, he is called Doc Holliday, but that is because he's a dentist. And he is well known throughout history that Doc Holliday was a dentist, and that's why he's called a doctor. He's not actually a medical doctor. I don't know why they make so many mistakes with these characters in this movie, but why would you set up Doc Holliday in that kind of situation where it didn't really exist? I don't know. It's just so frustrating that they use these characters, that these characters have throughout history been known for things, and that they completely don't even, they do something completely different with the characters than what they really did. It's just incredibly frustrating. This whole movie was just kind of frustrating for me. I don't know, but so before this movie, my knowledge of Wyatt Earp and my knowledge of Doc Holliday was in the movie Tombstone. So I saw Tombstone probably 15, 20 years ago, and I knew there were other movies that depicted Doc Holliday and Wyatt Earp, but I've never even heard of My Darling Clementine, and I had no idea that Henry Fonda ever played Wyatt Earp. But after I saw Tombstone, I did a lot of research. When I watch movies, when I say research, I Google stuff. but I cross-reference things. And so these are facts that I learned after watching Tombstone, and Tombstone does a very good job of this. I mean, Virgil lives in, I'm about to give some spoilers from Tombstone if you've never seen it, but Virgil lives, Doc Holliday, he also lives after the battle at the OK Corral and dies of tuberculosis, which is exactly what happened. So I don't know why this movie that's supposed to have such a great reference point gets it so wrong. And while I'm watching the movie, this just bothers me throughout the entire movie. Besides that, obviously John Ford, the cinematography is fantastic. He does a lot of really nice shots of just like a really small strip of a town. It really shows you like how small the towns were back then, because he does like a lot of shots where he zooms out a lot, and it's really nice cinematography. There's a scene where there's rain and there's rain coming down. He does a really good job with everything that he's doing here. So as far as cinematography goes, as far as direction goes, that's all great. The acting is fine too. Henry Fonda is really good. I would say this isn't the greatest acting performance I've ever seen from him. I mean, he's good, but he's not like as good as I've seen him in other movies. And I think it's probably maybe because of the source material or what he was given. I don't know. Doc Holliday is good too, but I don't know. I prefer the Tombstone version of this movie, the Tombstone version of Doc Holliday. I think he's probably Val Kilmer's the most like famous Doc Holliday that ever played in a movie about Wyatt Earp. So the acting's fine. I don't know if Clementine ever existed in real life, or if there was actually ever this was if it was really that she was Doc Holliday's girlfriend at first, and then eventually she became Wyatt Earp's girlfriend. I don't know, but I just thought that was weird because we already had a love interest of Chihuahua in the movie, and Chihuahua did a really good job of kind of being the companion to Doc Holliday. I really thought they did a good job back and forth with each other. So I didn't understand why Clementine needed to be introduced. I guess they just felt that Wyatt Earp needed a love interest, but I didn't really feel that that was the case. And then I felt the Clantons were really poor villains in this movie. I mean, they don't do a lot. I don't think they do a very good job of making the suspenseful, kind of setting up the scene, kind of setting up the fact that these are really good gunfighters, or that there's any reason to believe that they could beat Wyatt Earp or Doc Holliday in a duel. In fact, the whole movie, you can see that they're a bit worried, they're a bit afraid of Wyatt Earp, and at the end of the movie, when Wyatt Earp is seen with Doc Holliday, you can tell that they are afraid here, that they don't trust the fact that they are going to be able to get through this effectively. So I'm not really sure what this movie was trying to do. In my opinion, it doesn't tell a true story of Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday. It gets a lot of stuff wrong. So if that's what it was trying to do, it failed in that regard. But it is still a pretty decent Western. It still has great music, great cinematography. The acting is really good as well. But I just don't understand what they were trying to do with the story and what they were actually trying to tell here. I really feel like John Ford did a great job with Stagecoach, and maybe he should have done something else as his second movie after that. But I didn't get it. I love Westerns. Westerns is one of my favorite genres of movies, but I didn't get this. I didn't really think it added anything to the Western, to the Western category. For me, it didn't, at least. But I've seen a lot of Westerns, and this is one of the earlier ones. But to me, it doesn't really do anything. But besides that, I still can appreciate the camera work that's done. I can appreciate the acting. And I still give it an 8 out of 10. I think it's still a good movie. It's just, I gave Stagecoach a 9, and I was really hoping that he had some more years under his belt as a director, and that he was really going to produce something that was even better than Stagecoach here, but I think that it really falls flat. That's just my honest opinion. I know, obviously, there's a lot of people who love this movie. My honest opinion, though, is that this movie falls completely flat, and I think it's it's the worst of the Henry Fonda's movies I've seen before, and considering I gave it an 8, I think that says something about Henry Fonda. Anyway, thank you. I hope you have a great day. I hope you join me for my next review.